Join us, the LPC, this year. Visit us at www.dominicanidaho.org. Visit us at online store at stdominicstore.com. Thank you, and see you in the video. Welcome to a Dominican Moment. Join us for the third Saturday of the month. Join us for the LPC coming up for the 2025 Lay Provincial Council. For this 2025 at the Barbarossa Spa in San Jose, California. Join us for this video. Thank you.
Actually a member of the Legion of Mary. We have the same boss, the Blessed Virgin Mary, so it's beautiful. So first of all, I wanted to welcome you all here. You're one of the beautiful groups that we have, and we really enjoy having you here. It was nice to overhear you some of your morning prayers this morning, and I can see a lot of smiling faces, a lot of good attitudes, so I'm sure St. Dominic looking down from heaven is really happy what has been given to the world through you. So most of you have, I'm sure, been here at Valambrosa before. You know how beautiful it is, and I wish it was more beautiful, but we're still working on that. And I ask for your prayers, quite frankly, because our diocese is under bankruptcy, and property being sold is one of the things that are circulating around. So please keep us in prayer for that. As you know, we have many places for you to pray. Lourdes, Fatima, St. Joseph, St. Teresa of Avila, the Stations of the Cross, Mother Teresa of Calcutta, St. Michael, and St. Francis. So in between your business meetings, please take advantage of going out and praying and enjoying the solitude. 11 acres of quiet in the world of digital madness that surrounds this place right now. So one thing I did want to give you, this is a project of the Legion of Mary that Valambrosa has partnered with. You might have noticed that on each of your desks, I went ahead and put this little prayer card of the Sacred Heart. On the back of it is the Unity Prayer. In the 1960s, Jesus appeared to Elizabeth Kimmerman, all approved by the Catholic Church. And one of the things he did was that he gave her this Unity Prayer that he himself had composed and passed on to her. It's an extremely powerful prayer. because you join your eyes, your ears, your glances, your lips, everything to Jesus, who is the real power. So it's a terrific prayer. And Jesus also said that if you say this several times a day, Satan will become blind and not be able to lead people into sin. So our Legion of Mary has hooked onto this, and our goal, believe it or not, is to get 1 million people in the Bay Area to be praying the unity prayer every day. Because this is like every big city, really, kind of the home of Satan. He's got a very strong hold here, and we like to make him blind. So I would ask you to participate with that. If I could just relate to you one story, there was a religious order priest and an exorcist who was giving a conference in Philadelphia. And at the end of the conference, people lined up to get his blessing and ask him questions. The last person was a 24-year-old, very beautiful young lady. And she said, Father, you're not going to believe what happened to me. I was at a shopping center, and I was going from store to store. This really scary guy was stalking me everywhere I went. And I couldn't find security, couldn't find anybody to help me. Finally, in this one store, I could tell he was coming at me, and I got super scared. And then I remembered the unity prayer. She had taken a picture of it on her iPhone. So she pulled out her iPhone, said the unity prayer. The devil, this guy, walked right by her, walked around her, could not find her, and left the store. So I think, God every once in a while gives us these little things to say, this stuff is really powerful. And I was talking to Gilbert over there, who's a marvelous intellect. And thank you very much, Gilbert. So we were talking about unity, the unity prayer. And we're saying there's such disunity in the world today. But at the same time, there's so much potential for unity. I mean, I'm talking here, and somebody in Indonesia could be listening to my talk. It's the potential for unification. And that's what groups like yourself, I know, are working on. Bringing people to Jesus, who is the true unity. And in this particular prayer, we do all of that. So if you would join me as I lead and say this prayer together. Together, my adorable Jesus, may our feet journey together. May our hands gather in unity. May our hearts beat in unison. May our souls be in harmony. May our thoughts be as one. May our ears listen to the silence together. May our glances profoundly penetrate each other. May our lips pray together to gain mercy from the eternal Father. Amen. Our Legion has distributed 30,000 of these cards so far, and we're continuing to work on it. If you want, I've got a couple thousand in my office. I'd be happy to give it to you. And then my last message to you is that you're all familiar with the famous dream that Dominic's mother had of the dog with the torch in his mouth going around the world, lighting fires. Light the fire with the unity prayer. We go to Starbucks, we go to Chevron Station, we go to restaurants, nursing homes, and everybody gets a unity prayer. So I encourage you, I'm going to put a whole stack of them in the library and take as many as you want. And if you want more, my card's in the lobby, and I'll send you, 1,500. Take care. God bless you. Have a great time.
Thank you, Deacon. That's wonderful. We all should be in harmony and in unity with one another, especially if we compare it to the same. I'm going to turn it over to, the first thing we have on is let's make sure we're following the minutes. Now we've done some prayer. Okay, the minutes. Anybody have any? We have a motion to approve the minutes from 2024 LPC. For a second. Gilbert seconded. And is there any discussion as to the 2024 LPC minutes? Any amendments added? Hearing none, is there any objection? Was that, that would come later. The question was related to the minutes, or do you have a question with regard to what to do? Your comment is that with regard to the minutes.
women, which was hard to find, because women didn't write, right? Believe it or not. So there are 50 quotes from women in there, and so it's wonderfully diverse collection of saint writing, and sure you'll find new saints that you'll be interested in. And so this part of the promotion of the holiness is that. Then the priestly fraternity. So what I've done with the priestly fraternity is written the particular directory for the priestly fraternity. So as you know, what we're looking at, we didn't have something like it for the priestly fraternity. Now we do have something for it. If you know of any priest whom you might say, oh, this person might want to be associated with the order, a diocesan priest, not another religious priest, okay, but a diocesan priest, then you can let him know, and he can contact me, or you can let me know, and I'll contact him. But when we grow in our Dominican order, all throughout its particulars, including priests who are diocesan priests, then a wonderful thing happens. You get more religious assistance, okay? Because our diocesan priests for the priestly fraternity can become religious assistants for our task. And then we can really grow our Dominican laity. Because then all of you, I can come up here and see all of you would have religious assistance, which you don't have right now. All right, now, with regards to the promotion for the Dominican laity, this is what is in our ACTA. So that means this is my job description. The promoter shall serve as an ex officio non-voting member of the Provincial Council of the Dominican laity, so part of this council here. I find religious assistants for each of the chapters and regions, and I share with them information about the Dominican laity from the order and from our province, and use the guidelines for giving the religious assistance. So, I have tried to get religious assistance for all of you in some way or another, but some places are a little bit farther away, and so then it requires either Zoom meetings or where the religious assistance comes off. That being said, there are still some places that I'm looking, sort of prioritizing to get religious assistance, like Fullerton. I'm sort of prioritizing, trying to get, because as you know, in our Bay Area, we have around 10 chapters, right? But how many Dominican houses do we have? Raymond, St. Albert, St. Dominic, our Newman Center in Stanford, our Newman Center at Berkeley, right? And so we have a lot of Dominicans, including, especially if you look at St. Albert, right? You go to Southern California, you have the same amount of Dominican laity, but one house. Okay? So you see the difficulty, right? In that. Now, what I would like to see is more Dominican friars in Southern California, right? But that's not going to happen for quite a few years. So, with that in mind, we can't use all of the Dominican friars in Los Angeles. Why? Half of them are retired, okay? Which means they don't really get around. So it's harder to get religious assistance for Southern California. But I do want to prioritize Fullerton. And it's wonderful, Isaiah Mary, the prior, is really focused on lay mission. Okay? He's done a lot with Catholic Institute, and he's the religious assistant for Riverside and also President. Okay, so wonderful that he's doing so much already. But it's harder to get religious assistance. And then Arizona becomes its own issue because we used to have two houses of Dominicans in Arizona. Now we only have one, and it's in Tucson. So we have 4 lay fraternities in Phoenix area and 1 in Tucson. And we might have a second one in Tucson Archdiocese, but it'll be closer to Phoenix than Tucson. So we're really kind of strapped there, but what we're doing with religious assistance in Arizona is different than other places. The Arizona fraternities come together a lot more, and then the religious assistance can become special meetings. The religious assistance college students, so that becomes helpful. And we have the friars there doing very well as religious assistants for the pastors. And then you go up to Montana, Idaho. Idaho has which is a great connection to Portland. It's sort of a historical connection. They usually had the prior of the community in Portland as a religious assistant, and it's wonderful they can keep that tradition. Montana gives what it can, but it's, I think, doing what it can. And they have one of the best religious systems, in my estimation, is not a Dominican. Or he's the only one who's not a Dominican of our religious systems. But Father Cody shows up to all the meetings, and he really contributes, which is fantastic. As we get to Washington and Oregon, we have in Eugene a unique situation, but I'm the religious assistant there, and there's St. Alice, which is in Springfield. And as we go to Klamath Falls, which is the newest religious fraternity, right? Klamath Falls is on the border of California and Oregon, but not Medford Ashland, but further east. Okay. I'm going to be the religious assistant while I'm there in Tempe, okay? Which is a short 3.5-hour drive. But I am the closest Dominican community to Klamath Falls. So that's the connection there. And then Washington, Bremerton has the wonderful element of sort of having a mission. So, and their connection is actually through Kristen. Her maiden name was Sadok, right? So Father Christopher shows up, and so he's able to sort of really help the chapter along, especially in compassion and things like that. And then Seattle, and then Spokane. Spokane, the religious assistant there has gone off to Rome, so now I need to get a new religious assistant for Spokane. One places I did mention was the Central Valley. So again, it's hard to get Dominicans where they are. Okay. But there are connections that we're making. The student brothers go to Modesto, so that's a great connection there with the Fragilica chapter. And we'll see who comes up this coming year, because it's up to the student master. And then Visalia has Jerome. So we're sort of working out Central California. But again, we want more lay chapters. That means we're going to have more religious assistants too. Now, where are we looking as we extend our Dominican lay fraternity? Alaska is the big one in Anchorage. It would be easy to get a religious assistant there because they have a community of 5 brothers. So that's not the issue. The issue is they're trying to figure out how the lay Dominicans fit into the evangelizing effort of the Dominicans in Alaska. So they're working out sort of not the logistics, but the mission of the laity there. Okay, and I'm working that out with the pastor. But there are a lot of people who are either interested or I'm interested in them, going into the laity. And so there are lots of possibilities, but we're right now trying to bring our mission together. And Hawaii is on the back burner because the Archbishop of Hawaii is retired, or he's 75. So he turned in his retirement. That means he's not going to start any new thing. And I'll need his permission before we start something in Hawaii. Hopefully we'll get someone in soon, and then I can start sort of soliciting things from it. But we already do have a person who's a lay Dominican in Hawaii. She's close to Hilo, and so that's where I want to start the lay chapter, is in Hilo. And then talking about another place, Payson, Arizona. The diocese of Tucson, but it is east of Phoenix. Tucson goes up and around. So that will be set up through Gwen Lindy, if you know Gwen. And so she's moved there and will hopefully start a lay chapter there with the 2 parishes, St. Philip the Apostle and Holy Nativity. Holy Nativity is a parish of the Ordinarians, which means the Anglican Ordinarians, who are Anglicans coming into the Catholic Church and want to So Idaho is a chapter that is open to other people from other areas of the Pacific Northwest. They have 3 people in not a big town in pretty much central Oregon, which is next to nothing. Meaning next to nothing, it's literally next to nothing. Okay. And so hopefully we can start a Lay Provincial chapter in Burn, okay, which is 2 hours from Kennedy Bridge. So maybe the person who's the director of Kennedy Bridge can go there as well, okay? And so we can start something up on the east are interested in this too, okay? And so these are the areas of growth. Are there any other areas of growth or areas where you think, oh, I know someone who would be interested in a Lay Provincial chapter here, or I know of a priest who would be interested in starting one for this parish? Anything that comes from you, what do you think? All right. Okay, then you think about this while I talk. So what I do is I go to a parish and I preach about the Dominican ladies for the weekend, and then we have an initial talk after the last Sunday Mass for anyone who's interested. And then if there's someone who is already part of the Dominican lady, then they start something else. Or if there's a priest interested, then he starts something else. This is how it happens when I'm in Spokane. This is what I'll be doing in Payson in August. I'll be going and preaching about the Dominican lady, and then talking to people who are interested after the Sunday Mass. Okay, so if there's anyone or any place that you think might be interested, please let me know. Then the next part of my job description would be having knowledge and interest in the Dominican laity, interest in history, spirituality, ministry, and rule of the laity and the statutes of the Western Dominican province. Father Augustine Thompson is a great historian of our province, and he's a great historian for the whole world right now in Dominican. He wrote a work on St. Francis of Assisi. He wrote a work on the Dominican Cooperative Brothers, and now he's about a third of the way through, historically speaking, a history of the Dominican ladies. So he finished chapter 4, and now he's working on chapters 5 through, I think it's going to be about 10, 5 through 10. And he is he's going through the history of the laity with new information that came up in the work of a historian who wrote about the lay Dominicans and where they come from. Okay? And if you want to know more about that, the history of that, there's a book called Dominican Penitent Women, okay, which we had as a book, but the last gospel. And that link, the Dominican Penitent Woman book is a collection of writings about Dominican saints and lessons from the time period of the 13, 14, 59. But the intro is very important because it gives you this new look at Dominican laity history. So Father Augustine Thompson is using that new information gathered around 2000 to now do an official, real, true history of the Dominican laity. All right, so please pray for Father Augustine Thompson and the success of that work. He's not young. Okay. And also pray that we might be able to read it in our life. Okay. All right. So that's important there.
He's actually up to chapter 14.
Wow.
And
No, I know he's not.
well, I'm looking at his book on the beginning.
I know, but did you learn to look to see past chapter 4 how much he's written?
Well, yeah, exactly. He's going to have 14 chapters.
Yes, he's going to have 14 chapters, but he's up to chapter 4. I think he's put 4 or 5.
He was a 495.
But again, the pages though are double spaced, so this isn't like a book with a page. It's a dissertation, if you look at a dissertation, like it's a dissertation page. So it's not that. So every page would be, every 3 pages would be like one book page. So. But yes, it's going to be long. He ran through chapter 4 and 35, speaking about Dominican laity and how they started in the Philippines, China, and Japan, but not Korea.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah, and he gave a talk to us like the last week, and it's really busy. It's
Oh,
gonna be a really good book.
And I have to say, my favorite part about the book, strangely enough, is our St. Catherine's Hymn. You think, oh, I've read everything. No, you have not. It is really wonderful history of St. Catherine's Hymn. It gets into some fundamentals that I never put together. Okay, so that's going to be a very important part of our life. Then the next part of my job description, to visit all the chapters within the province over the course of the term. All right, we have 38 chapters. Okay. And we're going to have, by the end of my term, I hope we have 40. That's the magic number I'm looking for, which is also why I'm trying to get a few more chapters into laity. And so we'll have 40 fraternities. And then we're going to also, I'm going to try and get one for every state, right? So if I'm really looking at Alaska and Hawaii, right? But to visit them all becomes harder, especially as I live now at McKinsey Bridge, Oregon, at our retreat center. So I won't be able to get away as often. When I was prior in Seattle, I had a sub-prior. But as the director of the retreat center, I have to celebrate every single day Mass there. And if I don't, I have to get a replacement, which I'm not able to get for all, just any day. So I can't leave there that often. I can leave during the weekdays, but I can't leave on weekends, and unfortunately most of you have to leave on weekends, which is appropriate because you have jobs. And so I'm not asking you to change your meetings, but I'm also asking to letting you know that I probably won't be able to give your tasks this month. But that doesn't mean you won't get visits, because our council here is going to be looking to visit your chapters as well. Okay? So I'd love to visit you, and I really do want to just get out. But I am now in a job where I can. The other thing about this is that this is my final term as the provincial promoter, and so that will end in January of 2027. Now, can I ask for another term? Might they give it to me? Sure. But I don't know if I want to do that. Because I want you to get to sort of experience the wonderful riches of our Dominican friars, right? They're amazing group. And so we'll see about that, okay? And if there are no friars who want to take this, then I will certainly do another third term. But I want to do some due diligence to see if there's some friars who might do this position. Okay? Then the next part of my job description would be to communicate regularly with the chapters on matters of relevance. So what I do then is I get an email from our province or our master general, send it to John. John is the one who sends it out. Okay, so that's how I'm communicating with you. So if you're like, I never get an email from you, well, we had a reason. Okay, so all the things go through John. Okay. And then also I contribute something to our newsletter. So you'll hear more about our newsletter during that time. Then the next thing on the job description, work with our Provincial Council of the Dominican laity to foster chapter activities, area convocations, and other activities of the order. So regional meetings, that was part of the thing that we've been working on. We do have to talk about what regional meetings might look like now that we've already had one for every region. So we're going to have more emails about what future regional meetings might look like. Since all of you know what they are, now we can see how often we want to do them. Cooperate and communicate with the provincial promoters of the North American provinces. So we have our lay promoters for the Central Province, Southern Province, Eastern Province, and I am kind of in communication with those brothers, but they have as much work as I do. Okay, so if we have communicated via about something, and nothing's really come up, okay, which is a good thing. All right, but if something hasn't come up, I'm fine with that. And also working with the VLICC, which is really working with Ann and John, and just going to those meetings. And then working with the Master of the Students to assign interested students to the Ministry of Dominican Laity. So that when I go to the student page, I've been there, it's been about like once every 2 years, to talk to the student brothers about what the who the Dominican laity are and what it means to be the promoter or religious assistant. So I talk to the student brothers, and they're really interested in it. And also with Modesto, making sure that the religious assistant, the student brothers can be religious assistants for Modesto. And so our student ministry is very generous in having that happen. Okay. So these are this is my job description. This is what I've been trying to work on over these, now it's been 5 years, 6 years I think, because the term is 8 years. So that's where I am. Any questions, comments, anything that you're concerned about, changes? And of course, nothing scandalous. Scandalous is talking about all right.
I think it's important that we give you our thanks.
The best thanks to your prayers, especially after I'm dead. So, remember me, okay? All right. And we'll remember each other. I pray for you every day. All right. Thank you. So thank you so much. I need to you're welcome. Okay. All right.
I rarely have to go down. I do really appreciate all the guests that actually have done that. Last November, Thursday. Pardon? Okay. Raise the money. Okay. Make sure, is it on? You hear it okay? Okay, I'll speak up. I tend to be quiet. When a judge yells at you, speak up, and boy, I'll tell you, you do. That said, I just want to repeat what I mentioned with Father Augustine. Because I look in both, hopefully we all look, but we're all fall short of the glory of God, we're all sinful and imperfect, but we try to achieve life with some excellence. And I've seen that in not almost all of the Dominicans, a level of trying to achieve excellence in what they're doing and take on tasks with that in mind. And Father certainly meets that goal and beats it. So, Ireland is taking a quick prayer. So that's the goal, and that's what we achieve. When I see him, his height is not only a reflection of his physical ability, but it's a reflection of moral and excellence of God that he does. So I'm just very thankful for that. And some of the stuff that I wanted to mention, wanted to talk about just a few things. Our goal in mentioned about Idaho has a distance formation program. If you go to our website, you'll see there's one particular area about distance formation. We use the Zoom meetings to bring people in. And we've reached people from North Idaho. We have one in Montana, up in Kalispell. He joined us years ago before Montana. And the 3 in Burns, Oregon, 1 in Southern Idaho. He lives about like 20 Mormons that live around there. He's trying to seek some companionship from them. which anybody who's been in southern Idaho or Utah understands that problem. So it is something we try to achieve. And so I encourage, if any of you want to make that a part of an apostle of your chapter, reach out to me, and we can talk about how logistically you want to have good equipment and that kind of thing to reach out to those other people. And for those who I haven't met, there's a few of I haven't met. My name is John Keenan. I'm the president of LPC. I'm on the end of a 3-year term, and at present. So if I haven't talked to you or introduced yourself, or I myself to you, please do so. I'll try to reach out to you as well, because I'd like to meet everybody in the room. We have a number of new faces. You realize, I think we have 51 here. That's the largest group ever that attended the LPC. Now, there have been in the past larger groups when we had a major speaker. We get 65, 70 people. But this is the first one that's exceeded 50 in my time, in the last 10, 12 years that I can account for. The point being is the interest is going, which goes to the next point, because he talked about growth in chapters. And it is happening. And I mentioned yesterday, there is a powerful response going on in society. You better be prepared. Because what's happening is that people are, our society has become collectively foolish. Not individuals, not committees of people, not the Congress, but all of society. And particularly young people, I know everybody who's past the age, remembers in the calls, especially those who are young now, there's a yearning for truth. We yearn for truth. It comes by nature to us already, but it's the filter of time that kind of takes us out of it. But let's recall it back. And people will come to you and ask about what's the truth. This is what the 3 people in Burns, Oregon received. They called, I talked to 2 of them, all 3 of them are looking for that because they are soulfully dying. They want it. And it's happening with young people. And so when you're at the universities, when you are at a young parish, reach out. Put up a table. Set up an inquiry class to answer questions. Or reach out to people that you know and invite them to the meeting. You know that this person would have the mind and soul of the Dominican. Go ask them to participate. Go to the radio stations or put an ad on. In the diocesan paper, if you have a local paper, get it in there. These are ideas about spreading the word of Christ through us, which gets to the objective of my particular report today, in addition to some of the things that we want to talk about. And we face that in expanding the apostles of the chapter. We have one example, and then I'll give my brief report. We have an example. We have a young man who lives in Lewiston. He's, how old is he now? 23. He's just a real interesting fellow. He came to us when he was 20. And he lived in a small town, just near Ontario, Oregon, called Weezer. I don't know if any of you know where that is, but it's a small town. And he is from Boston. He married a gal at Reformation College in Florida. Protestant college, Calvinist college. And he was from Boston and she was from Weezer. They moved back to Idaho after getting married. While attending Reformation College in Florida, they went to a theology class, and the professor, this is unfortunately the kind of dishonesty we run into. I don't want to accuse anybody, but they had him read like the first 2 or 3 questions of Thomas Aquinas. And 7 of these young men went into the sub and started reading the rest of the questions together. At Reformation College, at a Calvinist college, and all 7 of them converted to the Catholic faith. So God invited them, they answered. And it was through the working of a dear Protestant that God invited them. So how much more powerful you have when you ask a student, a friend, to come to a meeting and read Thomas Aquinas in the study. It's an absolutely fascinating story. And what they did collectively, they didn't know what to do. They wanted to become Catholic. So guess who they called? And they got him on the phone. Scott Hahn. And so they drove up to the University of Steubenville, met him, and he encouraged him to talk to him. So it's an important thing that what's going on in society, we have to be prepared and respond to it. And that's what today's meeting is largely about. Just to give you a quick rundown of what I wanted to report. You know, one time, often when I'm praying the rosary, particularly the glorious mysteries, the Ascension, I often imagine myself there in the presence of Christ, standing with the apostles, just listening. What are his instructions? Because I dare say the Bible only gives us a little of what he was instructing them about the spread of the gospel. And then at the end of it, I always get a kick out of this. You know, at the end of the angels look at him and say, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand here looking in heaven?" And it's like Jesus was taken up and he's going to turn the same way. And it's like they're saying, "Get to work." You know, why are you standing around here? Let's get to work. So it's about spreading the good news, obviously, and this is no less a call to the third order. Get to work. And, you know, as Father Garrett Lagrange said, that this is no less true for you. So he said the monastery is the novitiate of heaven. In other words, it's where he prepares you for heaven. And you're in the same place. You're not in the rigor of a monastery, but you are in the rigor of Christian life, of the rule, of the Dominican sweetness of life, that you can respond to freely and with grace. And it is a lesson that we can be. So it's a call to you as well. Last week I got a phone call from my nephew, Dorian Keenan. Dorian is the son of my older brother, who was an alcoholic, and his son is an alcoholic. And he called me as from Northern Idaho. When he calls me, he shows up and waits on a bus 65 days ago, wants a ride to a dry out place. It's the state of Idaho. Brand new place. The first one in Idaho. I know we're back, but that's okay. So he spends 62 days there. His husband calls me, asks me to come to his graduation. So I have no idea what I'm dealing with. I go over there real quick. It's over near Melba. Does anybody know where Melba, Idaho is? Very good. The place I take my kids when they're younger. Because if you really want to go to a 4th of July parade, go to Melba. It's from like 1952. I'm kidding, but it just ages. It ages very well. Anyway, I go and there's in the living room there of this retreat center, 15 or 18 men, somewhere between 19 to 55, somewhere, all of them spread across that. And they sit Dorian down, and the director hands him a coin, and he said, I want each one of you to comment and put into this coin your comment. And they spread it around. And the honesty that poured forth from these men, their alcoholism, their drug addictions, the things that they were doing, that just came out. And I was totally moved. Why do I bring this up? Because the power of the Spirit, of course, the power to bring aid and help these men deal with things. It's the Word of God still working, despite that it's not on somebody's thumping you with the Bible. It works. And it worked wonderfully. And it changed Dorian. Dorian, to be honest with you, is a son who he's like a little bit like, I have to say this, but he's a little bit like white trash. It just has a great deal of truth to it. Why do I say that? Because he never could get his act together, never could. And he has lost all his keys and he's 40. And I love the guy. But how to get him? Now, that is something that we're called to do in this life, is to work with people. And this no less for the third order. And part of it for you is to live the pillars, study. I don't have to rename them for you, but ultimately the key one is preaching, the apostle of preaching. And how we do that matters. you have to do it in the order of things. And the other is marriage. One of the formation programs lists her as one of the pillars. Is she nonetheless a great human? And for the lay Dominicans, this is such we're called to teach and preach and deal with. One of the wonderful things we had at a chapel meeting was, let's talk about what is the difference between teaching and preaching. And everybody pours in, and everybody jumps in with passion. Do it. Create a colloquy and get a really good definition so by the end of the discussion, they understand the differences. But part of it requires, in addition to the discussion, it requires action. And third order is like, it shares in the charism of the order, for the salvation of souls, knowledge and love of Christ. Father mentioned well that knowledge and love come together. And knowledge of Christ. And how do we know him? How do we love him? And of course, our good definition of that has been the will, the good of the others. And that's in action. Love is in action. It's a decision of here. We can reflect on our passions for love. There's nothing wrong with that. But it can often become the motivation that we can act in that love. And it's certainly this solid traditions within the church, grounded in truth and in the order of creatures. But we deal with, and we've mentioned this before, there's a lot of foolishness in the world. And part of it is continue in prayer, constantly check yourself to get objective about what you're doing correctly as a chaplain, person, and that type of thing. But yet we need to live out the rules. We need to live out the life that has been handed to us, this charism of St. Dominic, because he's real. He existed. And this institution that we're under is very powerful once used appropriately. But in exercising this, there's a direct connection between the knowledge of Christ and the good works that we do, and we have to obey Christ. A number of years ago, before I mention that, Christ says that you are my friends if you do as I command. There's a condition. It's in the scripture. And I can show it to you. It's John 15:15. The powerful thing is that we were once slaves. We were a master-servant relationship. And what is the difference between friendship and servants? If you know the master, you get to know him. What moves him? Your best friend. It's kind of a reflection of friends. What is a friend? A friend is a person who knows who you are. Know your issues. Know your front door and your back door, so to speak. What ticks you off? One of the things that brought up, one of the reasons I brought up with regard to my nephew is because every single one of the men that were in that room said, Dorian, you have an anger problem. Not only an alcohol problem, we don't know where it comes from, but you need to deal with it. And they gave him ammunition, if he's truthful to himself, to build a new life at 40 years of age. And one of the neatest readings I've ever read with regard to friendship, not only outside of Scripture, and certainly within many of the fathers of the church, but was Cicero. Cicero was a senator of Rome and died in the year 43 BC. Great sense of humor, even at death. I don't know if you've read about his death. But he was on the prescription list under the emperor. He was not an emperor yet. I forget his name. He succeeded Julius Caesar, Octavian. It's really funny because he was on the list, and Octavian sent soldiers out to go kill him. And he was running away from Rome, and he was on an island, and his litter was carrying him up. And the soldiers were coming down and caught up to him, and he stuck his head out of the letter. Take it off, that's the best, I'm not going to get out. So they sliced his head off, and he died with a smile on his face. But in that reading on friendship describes what a friend is, and how important a free gift. So this is what Christ is giving us, is a free gift. And that is so important. It's what the secular world understands, I believe, Jesus Christ understands it. have, so science is knowledge. How do we know the science of God? Love, as I mentioned a moment ago, is doing the things of God and to love your neighbor as yourself. In other words, willing the better of your neighbor. John 1:2-3 says, by this we may be sure that we know him. We know him. We have knowledge of him. This is we keep his commandments. And his commandments is to go out and to change the world through love. Romans 8, St. Paul says, for all who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. And if children, then heirs. Heirs of God. And fellow heirs of Christ. One thing that you realize if you study the law, you realize heirs are related. They inherit by law. So you have to have a blood relationship. St. Paul calls us heirs. Beneficiaries are ones that are granted property through the will, by the will of the testator. But it's through heirship that we inherit from our parents, because we're related to them. So what St. Paul is, we are, though adopted, we have a very incredible relationship with Jesus Christ, as a brother in Christ. And this doesn't escape me when I first read it. He also mentions, provided we suffer with him in order we may be glorified with him. What is this? In other words, we have to give of ourselves. Suffering, it's not going out and placing yourself necessarily on a rack, but it's getting up on Saturday morning, getting organized and prepared. It's doing the things necessary for your children and your family first. Then in the order of things like, job, chaplain, whatever. Being prepared, those things matter in the chapter life. And to continue, it's in this doing that we partake of the divine nature, St. Peter says. We become partakers of the divine nature. It's important. We live by faith, then we, through virtue, to love. He talks about it in faith we live, and ultimately, if we live there in virtue, we can achieve this divine nature. And he says that we will not fall if we achieve this orientation in life. I'd encourage you to read Peter 1, 8-11. He gives a dissension of things that you should do to partake in the divine nature. If we have time, I'd read it, but this is not a Bible study. Again, that's 1 Peter 1, 8-11. It's a very beautiful thing. And because if we do these things, we can know Christ, quote, be more zealous, confirm your call to election, or you do this. If you do these things, you will never fall. One thing that I was looking for with regards to this issue was some of the fathers of the church. And we were discussing this yesterday. St. Clement of Alexandria, a great reading, and I discovered him through the Holy Father, St. Benedict's writing, St. Pope Benedict XVI. In there, he talks about, I'm going to get this right yet, but he espouses the idea of St. Alexandria, that the doctrine, if he used the term doctrine, that man's ultimate end is to liken himself to God. I don't know why, but that captured my eyes and my attention. And he talks about it in that as being the image of God. And our ultimate purpose is to become, quote, similar to God. We're not God, but we become similar to him. Not just an image. We become friends with him and like him. And we recall the scriptures full of this. Psalm 8 talks about it. He made man a little less than the angels. He crowned him with glory and honor. And so we have to remember that this is not something, a new revelation or a new thing. Even in the Old Testament, it reveals what our destiny is, our destination. In other words, faith and obedience. James talks about it. Faith without works is dead. But it's more than that. The question is, do you personally want to know Christ? And if you do, you obey him and you do what he... And I'm bringing this up because this goes directly to the doing in our chapter. Because it's an instrument, a house, a place of love. you can use to exercise the things that Christ has asked us to do. And at St. Benedict, Pope Benedict XVI said, so consequently, good works must accompany intellectual knowledge as the shadow follows the body. As the shadow follows the body. It's important. 1 Peter 3:15. How do you do this? How do you approach it? I've met too many people who have engaged in a lot of gospel, but they and I get very passionate. I'm one of them sometimes. I have to step back and think. But St. Peter tells us, we study, we pray, and we must defend the faith, be ready to defend the faith. But to do so with some of the translations say kindness, gentleness, and with reverence. I think the point is clear. You can't beat people over the head with this stuff. And this is particularly speaks to me, admittedly. In some, it is within these words of Scripture, the Dominican saints, St. Dominic and his tradition, the sacred tradition of our order, and it certainly is the backdrop of the Catholic faith and the Catholic spirituality, that we can exercise this. And it's down through the St. Dominic, in his quietness, has spoken through the centuries about how to live a life in light of Scripture, particularly, in light of the charisms granted through him, and the graces there, through the tradition of the order. And it's through this that we want to explore. That's what we're exploring today. Where do we get to the possible? And where do we get meaning? And it's in the Scriptures. It's in this tradition that gives it meaning. It's not just rote redoing. The chapter doesn't become a work. It becomes a blessing. Dealing with the oddities of different personalities becomes less of a handicap. It becomes the aging and speeding through what's necessary. The gentleness of dealing with the oddities. All members can testify to our members of their oddball. I'm probably one of them. At the end of the day, these things give meaning to you and build you up to fulfill the task ahead of you. This is a great race. So obedience is key. And it's not legalism versus grace, which any of those from Protestant tradition, I use that term very particularly, Protestant tradition, that divides these two. And that is a great error. Because one comes before the other, but there's not a division. They work with each other like oxen in the towing and the formation of pulling the cart ahead for Jesus Christ. And you are in chapters. This is your place. You've been called here. And other people are called to other things. But you are here. It's part of your vocation here on earth. And that's what we're going to discuss. And the hope, and that's where we're going with it. Any questions? I'm very thankful in closing that, or the work with this council. And it's been a real joy, and everybody takes on their job, and they take it up and they do it. And that's been the fun part. And you see the excellence of that work. And I just really thank you very much. It's really a joy. So anyway, thank you. Are there any questions, comments, or anything? Thank you so much. It's 5 to 11. We're supposed to take a break. I'm over 10 minutes.
We start 10 minutes late.
Yeah, we start 10 minutes late. Thank you.
This is the end of the video. Join us for the next video. Please visit us at dominicanidaho.org. Visit us on Shop Online at stdominicstore.com. Thank you. Thank you for watching. This is for a video for the next part. See you in the next video.